court-ordered services, and the court will note that the department is present, represented today by Ms. Leslie Levi and joined by Mr. Matt Schaefer. In addition, we have with us Ms. Anna Swallow. She is the attorney for the respondent mother, Maricela Aguilar. Ms. Aguilar is present. Mr. Michael Finkel is here. He is the attorney for the respondent father, Joel Agosto. Mr. Agosto is present. And then we have Ms. Cecilia Helrung here. She is the attorney, and she's the attorney ad litem for the child. And Ms. Frankie Ellis is here with CASA of South Texas.
To this case,
I'm the family-based safety services worker.
And what brought this case into FBSS?
A domestic between both mother and father.
All right, now let's start with the mother. How's she doing on her service plan?
With Miss Aguilar, she's been very consistent in her services alone. Since the last hearing, she has been continued in her individual counseling with Candace, addressing the domestic violence protective measure, protective capacities, protective parenting. She's also engaged in her outpatient treatment through Camino Real still, in addition to all her other forms of outpatient treatment that are pretty much are part of the same outpatient treatment program. She's engaged in those as well. And she has been up to the point, unfortunately, until she left out of state. She was engaged all the way up to that point. Since then, I know Miss Aguilar has returned back to the state as of yesterday. So since the hearing up to the point where she did leave out of state, she's been in compliance, been cooperating, been testing negative for myself and for the actual outpatient treatment as well. So we don't have any non-compliant issues with her, just a gap now in between where she was out of state and now returned, so we can get her back fully engaged as she was previously. Miss Aguilar has gotten in touch with the Multi-Assistance Center, MAC Center, we call it, through Morgan Lunderland. She had a navigation specialist contact with her on January 31st, therefore set up a in-person meet and greet with Miss Aguilar, the child Malik, and will be the caregiver, Miss Destiny Martinez, as well, present for March 15th at 3 p.m. I confirmed yesterday on the appointment time just to make sure, and we already have transportation secured for Miss Aguilar, the caregiver, and the child to attend the appointment on time to get Malik set up in his actual services that have been much awaited. So that's where we stand in regards to Miss Aguilar at this time.
Okay, and what about Mr. Agosto? How is he doing?
Okay, at that time, I'll pass it on to Miss Luce. I'll take on.
Okay, before we do that, have you been the primary worker responsible for setting up services for Malik?
Yes, I am the primary worker.
Okay, and I know there was some talk of getting him into some special interventions. How can you give the court an update on that as well?
Yes, we've been roundabout in regards to getting Malik actually set up in certain services that he needed. As you know, that there was a Medicaid issue previously that kind of stopped some things. Then we went on to finding that there is a service provider network called Autism Treatment Network that actually provided and branched out to other services that may not have needed Medicaid. We got that situated. We got him applications in the Baby Can that we had pending, and through the whole ball rolling. It was all about getting him in, getting him seen, but it was all about availability with these service providers. It wasn't just always like a quick initiative, or let me rephrase that. It wasn't a quick turnaround for him to engage in those services. However, all parties have been aware that since we've had our family group conferences, that we feel that we're at a point where now Malik can proceed fully and engage in all the necessary and required services for him, and to extend into long term, even when the case does close and the parents are able to do the responsibilities of meeting his needs ongoing.
Okay. Now, Mr. Agosto lives in Bexar County, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, he does.
Is Miss Aguilar still residing in?
Yes, ma'am, she is.
Now, has she discussed plans to relocate with you?
Yeah, she has discussed that it was in that she was open to that. We've talked about a couple of possibilities. At one point, it was with Mr. Agosto, but that's no longer an option or consideration. I provided Miss Aguilar with Strong Foundation, which was a program for mom and children to be with each other in San Antonio. She applied. Haven't heard back anything in regards to any contact with this program to allow her to be actually there in San Antonio. We looked at possibility of another grandmother of her own, but that option fell through. So there's been options for her to go to different locations from her residency. I still feel at this time that nothing has really been solid or secure. So at this time, it still appears that Ms. Aguilar is going to remain in Atascosa County until otherwise.
Okay, I will pass the witness.
Why is it that Miss Aguilar would need to move from Atascosa County?
Yes, initially we were looking at the possibility of better chance for mom reunifying with her son Malik. It's been made known that there are concerns in the household that she resides in regards to the maternal grandfather that play a role in a area that could hinder Malik being reunified with Miss Aguilar. So we want to see reunification with her and Malik. At this time, it wouldn't be appropriate for that to return to the maternal grandfather's home. So we're just really trying to look at other options for her in order to be with her son so we can actually see what she can do long-term, ongoing.
Okay, so right now my client lives with her father.
Yes, ma'am.
And what specifically is your concern regarding her father?
The maternal grandfather he's been very respectful, very open, nice, allows me to go to the home. He's been very honest that he does use drugs on his own accord, outside the home, as he says, away from the home, his own personal business.
Okay, and that drug is it a narcotic?
It's been voice of just being marijuana, but again, he's unwilling to provide a test for us so I can verify that.
Okay, and so, but not for the fact that the grandfather allegedly uses marijuana on occasion, would Malik be back with his mother at this point?
Yes, if we had no other concerns in that aspect, then yes, based on that, Malik would be back with Miss Aguilar.
Okay, and so, and based on your testimony, it sounds like my client has attempted to try to secure other housing. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. Other options, yes.
Okay, and so it's not a matter of not complying, it's just not available.
Right.
And so she cannot be with her son because housing is not available and her dad allegedly uses marijuana on occasion.
Yes, there's not a possible opportunity for full reunification at this time.
And is that the department's position?
As yes, we will not recommend to have reunification with this concern in the household unless we can do something to resolve that.
Okay, if the grandfather was never alone with the child, would that make a difference?
In the instance if the reunification was to occur in any aspect, any household, we would definitely want Miss Aguilar to be the primary caregiver fully to Malik across the board. In the instance of him being in her, let me rephrase that, with Malik being returned to Miss Aguilar in the maternal grandfather's home, yes, under no circumstances would the department ever feel comfortable with the grandfather being alone with the child, caregiving for the child, transporting the child in any aspect due to that concern.
Okay, and so if this court were to order Malik to be returned to his mother, that's something that we could still work with.
Absolutely, with certain stipulations on agreeing. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. At this time, is the department opposed to the grandfather transporting my client to visit Malik?
With transportation between the grandfather and Miss Aguilar, no, not at all.
Is the department opposed to Malik visiting or seeing his grandfather if Miss Aguilar is present?
To my knowledge at this time, that should be fine, but I would need to get clearance from upper management as well to staff that appropriately.
Does she need supervision at this point?
I know that was something that we were discussing. I know we're still in discussion in that aspect, but based on what we have as her progress and working and cooperating with us, we ultimately did not have any concerns in that aspect. We just want to make sure the stipulations were covered.
Okay. And in regards to Malik's care, isn't it true that my client has been very proactive since the inception of this case and really stood up to the plate to try to secure the proper care and to meet his medical needs?
Yes, I've seen a positive, excuse me. Yes, I've seen a positive change in your client, Miss Aguilar, as she continues to prosper and progress in the attempts and the initiative to set Malik up with necessary services. We would definitely like to see this ongoing and more one-on-one as her as a parent to fully get the full aspect of her capabilities.
And isn't it true that the current placement is also extremely supportive of my client and fostering that relationship with her son.
Yes, ma'am.
In regards to Morgan's Wonderland, if Malik was returned to my client in Atascosa, could he still take advantage of the services at Morgan's Wonderland?
Absolutely.
Okay. And so is that something that you've verified?
That's something I want to speak with the navigation specialist on the meet and greet. I know that's something I've asked Miss Aguilar and the caregiver to follow up as well, to see and know more of what services Malik's going to need, the frequency per week. Is it going to be multiple services within that week? That would give us more of a better understanding as to what type of, services he needs, and also transportation as well.
Okay. Thank you. I pass the witness.
Thank you.
Mr. Schaefer, isn't it important to make sure that there is transportation for Malik to Morgan's Wonderland before we place the child out of county?
Yes, that is something very well to be taken into consideration.
Okay. And mom has been very proactive, but the department has also been involved with this case and assisting her as well as the caregiver is. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Have you spoken with the grandfather recently about taking a drug test to confirm that he is only using marijuana?
Not recently, not since. I want to say maybe, to my knowledge, around the beginning of December.
Okay. And he has admitted to using marijuana, but is refusing, at least previously, to drug test to confirm that it is only marijuana. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. When I've spoken to him, yes.
And there was an issue before with marijuana being smoked around Malik with the caregiver's daughter. Is that correct?
Yes, to my knowledge.
Okay. Well, as a result, the caregiver was not allowed to have that daughter anywhere near Malik or have that child in the home that the daughter was smoking marijuana, correct?
Can you repeat it?
Okay, so there was an issue prior to the last case where Malik was with the caregiver's daughter and she was smoking marijuana. Is that correct?
Oh, yes, ma'am. Yes.
Okay.
I understand, yeah.
And as a result, you had to do a safety plan to ensure that not only was that daughter not around the child, but that the child was not in a home that there was marijuana, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So having Malik in a home where marijuana is being smoked is a concern of the department.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, we had a family group conference about the services at Morgan's Wonderland. Are you planning to attend that meeting on the 15th with the caregiver and mom?
Yes, I'm contemplating in regards with my availability as well, but also if I'm unable to physically, I'm very well hoping I can participate and hear everything by phone. But I definitely want to be on the same page as well, as it's going to depend a lot on me to be on the same page with everybody and able for me to do proper and thorough casework.
Is there a way that you can get approval for that, considering that the main issue in this case at this time is really Malik's progress?
Absolutely. I have no problem with talking with the navigation specialist, Miss Sandra Montoya, to ask her if my presence is able to be accommodated.
Okay. And mom's visits have been going very well, correct?
They have. Unfortunately, the last visit was back on February 16th due to mom being out of state. But through all the visits, she's been doing very well. The engagement's been very well. Malik, as I stated before, is actually becoming more comfortable out of his shell with his mother. The affection, just the bonding alone, you can see a difference. So Miss Aguilar has been very consistent with her visits, engaging in those. The department's been transporting her to make sure that occurs. And with that consistency, we do see a change that's progressing with Malik and between Malik and Miss Aguilar. So in hopes when there's a reunification, we could see some of this behavior blossom.
Okay. Are there other options being proposed for mom to have stable housing? Is there any way that the department can assist?
We have discussed with her in regards to housing in the Atascosa area. She was reluctant to proceed with that. The therapist had actually mentioned that to her as well. I've made some efforts, to talk with mom, like, hey, let's just look across the board. Who do we got? Family, anybody that would give you a better chance to have Malik. And like I said, unfortunately, some of those fell through, which prompted me to provide her with, in hope, strong foundation. There is actually another location located in Medina, Texas, called Arms of Hope, which is a together program for mom and children. I can provide mom with this application, but I have to know if she's even willing to relocate to Medina, Texas in order to be part of that program. But at least she would be with her son. But yes, there are a few other options, definitely.
So has mom looked into Strong Foundation?
Yes, the same day that I provide her that information upon a visit that I was supervising with her, with not even within a minute of me giving to her on her way out as she was being transported by the CWA back with the child, she already sent me a screenshot showing that she contacted and reached out to them. I just need to follow up with her and also with, with Miss Aguilar and Strong Foundation to see if anything has progressed from that.
Okay. And if she could get in there, she would be very close to Morgan's Wonderland, wouldn't she?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, Morgan's Wonderland is kind of a one-stop shop. It's going to assist in giving resources to both Malik and to Ms. Aguilar, as well as Mr. Agosto once he becomes compliant. Is that fair?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, what are the plans for Mr. Agosto to know what is going on with the MAC Center? Are there any plans for him to get engaged with them?
Well, definitely, yes. We would like to have Mr. Agosto, just as he is as a father, to be able to be just as engaged as well with his son in the services. I know that the concern, of course, is domestic violence within the relationship or past relationship. We'll say that in regards to why we got involved. I don't have any therapeutic recommendations to have mom and let me rephrase that. I don't have any recommendations from the therapist to support Ms. Aguilar or Mr. Agosto to be present at the same time with their child. Yes, it may be at the MAC Center, but I mean, technically somewhat being supervised by service provider.
Yeah, and that's not what I'm suggesting. It's
Right.
just my understanding is that once he's engaged with the MAC Center, they can provide services to Mr. Agosto as well.
Yes, ma'am. That's correct.
Okay. Sorry if that was confusing.
It's all right. My apologies.
Okay, so once we have this meeting on the 15th and we have a plan, you'll provide that plan to all parties so we know, what is necessary so that we can move forward to placing Malik back with his mother.
Absolutely. This is the big key that we've all been missing and anxious to get to on this case. So yes, that is something I definitely plan to get out to everybody as soon as possible.
Okay, great. Nothing further.
Ms. Ortegon, can you give the court an update on how Mr. Agosto is doing on his service plan?
Mr. Agosto is doing pretty good. He hasn't missed any more sessions with his BIP counseling. He's completed 10 sessions out of 20. He is halfway done through the program. His counselor reports that so far he's doing good and he's been learning control techniques for his anger management. He does have one absence, but besides that, they have no concerns for him being redischarged again. So he's halfway done through the program. As far as substance abuse, he's been attending sessions regularly, and his substance abuse counselor is also stating that he's doing very good so far.
So at this time, would you consider Mr. Agosto in compliance with his family plan of service?
Yes.
And is he getting to visits with Malik?
Yes, his visits with Malik are going good.
All right, I'll pass the witness.
Thank you. Is there anything else specifically that Mr. Agosto needs to be doing as far as the services are concerned?
Yes, so Mr. Agosto needs to, he was referred to a psychiatrist after completing his psychological. I did speak with Mr. Agosto about this. I did let him know that I could refer him somewhere, but those referrals would not be somewhere that would be efficient for him as far as the long term. If I were to refer him somewhere once the case closes and those services end, and he wouldn't have that long-term help that he might need or he will need in the future. Mr. Agosto did say that he will be attending on Saturday to the Center for Healthcare Services, so he's able to go through a community resource and receive the help even after this case ends.
And as far as any of the services that Malik is getting, is Mr. Agosto given that information? Is he able to participate?
As far as that, I would have to speak with Mr. Matt Schaefer. Like he stated, yes, he would be able to participate. He just wouldn't be able to be present at the same time that Ms. Matusela would be there.
All right, so otherwise he's doing, has he been having visits with Malik?
He did miss 3 visits with Malik. But we did have our last visit this last week on Friday. That visit went pretty well. Malik is showing to be very close to dad. He always gets excited when he sees Mr. Acosto. He's doing very, very well with Malik. He does very good with him.
All right, so you have no concerns there.
I don't have any concerns with his relationship with Malik.
Thank you. I'll pass the witness.
Yes, I'm sorry, I may have missed it. What are the ongoing concerns with Mr. Augusto?
The ongoing concerns with Mr. Acosto would be his alcohol use. Mr. Acosto did relapse. I believe it was in the beginning of February or end of January. I don't have the specific date on me. I would have to check. He did relapse and get a DWI. So those are concerns that he's continuing to use alcohol as a coping mechanism. Mr. Acosto has never tested positive for the department, but he has admitted to me to drinking. In the past 2 months, he did state that he's almost 2 months sober since the incident that occurred. But he hasn't tested positive for the department at all. That's just a concern of the situation that was brought up, his DWI.
And given that information, what are they offering? Is he an outpatient? Is he being evaluated for his alcohol use?
Yes, Mr. Acosto is currently an outpatient. His outpatient counselor did request that he has counseling due to some trauma that he has endured, as that's what's causing him to relapse. Mr. Acosto was referred once again to a counselor, as last time his last counselor discharged him unsuccessfully due to lack of attendance. He has been referred since and is waiting for that counselor to contact him.
Okay, so how is he doing is he compliant with outpatient?
Yes, he's very compliant with outpatient. I've spoken to his counselor. I know she told me that the day he was out of jail for the DWI, he called her, let her know, hey, I relapsed, this is going on. Let her know why he relapsed. And he's very, very open with her. I know she definitely still has concerns for his use, but she is pretty pleasant with his engagement.
Okay, so his visits have been at the caregivers, correct?
No, so none of our visits have been at the caregiver's home. We have taken Malik to Chuck E. Cheese, to the park, just various places, a trampoline park as well.
Okay. Do you have any concerns about unsupervised contact between Mr. Augusto and the child at this time, given some of the concerns you have?
Yes, I do. The department would request that he does not transport Malik at any point due to the DWI. He will also be having his license suspended.
Okay, nothing further.
All right. Let me allow you to do that. If I can hear from any of the attorneys that wish to address the court, and then Ms. Holrung and Casa. So Ms. Swallow?
Thank you, Judge. I would just request that Malik be returned to his mother. I think that based upon where we're at in this case and her compliance, that would be in Malik's best interest. At the very least, I would request that she be granted unsupervised access to her son. There's no reason why she needs to. I've heard no testimony, and the department didn't provide any reason why he couldn't have unsupervised access with his mother. If the court is not inclined to place Malik back with his mother today, I would request that the parties be ordered to have a conference following the Morgan's Wonderland meeting on March 15th, so that we can talk about any barriers to placing Malik with his mother that may interfere with his services at Morgan's Wonderland.
I went to go visit with Malik after we had the family group conference. He's doing very well. He's happy. He's much more engaged and a lot more comfortable, seems a lot less agitated. As far as the request by Ms. Swallow, my biggest concern and the barrier there is safe housing, safe and stable housing. I am concerned, given Malik's special needs, that he not be in a home with someone who's admittedly using drugs and refusing to drug test. I know that at the family group conference, we did discuss supportive housing, such as the Strong Foundation. I think that I would ask that the department work with Ms. Aguilar to find some housing options for her while, she's dealing with, I guess, she's on a list for housing on her own. I think she's done very, very well. I have no concerns about unsupervised visits. I just would not want Malik being transported by the grandfather, given the concerns. I do want to see what is going to happen at Morgan's Wonderland. I'm really happy that it's happening. I'm also aware that the caregiver has been contacted by Any Baby Can. So once we find out what the MAC Center is able to offer, if there are any gaps, then I would like to, follow up with Any Baby Can to see if they can fill some of those gaps. My understanding is the MAC Center is an all-encompassing program, so my hope is we won't need both of the programs. I'm really happy to see Mom's very engaged. I do want to see Dad further engaged in treatment. I know that the visits are going well. I just want to make sure that, he is dealing with his issues. And until, we know that he is clean, sober, and addressing that, I want to make sure that Malik is not unsupervised with him. So I have no concerns with Mom's supervision. I just don't think placement is appropriate at this time, given that she's living with a father who's admitted that he is actively using drugs.
Pretty much what we had in our report are the concerns that have already been addressed. The only other concern that I had was in visiting with Mom, there were some eating habits that were brought up that I just felt like we need to make sure those are addressed as well.
Okay, well, that seems doable. Considering where we started, this is the best report that I've had across the board for both parents and for Malik as well. And I'm very happy to hear that. At this time, based on the testimony that's been provided, I'm going to find that Ms. Aguilar is in compliance with her plan of service and court orders, and that Mr. Agosto is in substantial compliance with his plan of service and court orders. I realize your DWI was a setback and your relapse, but it sounds like you handled that in the way that I would want and expect, by acknowledging and admitting that you made a mistake and alerting the people that you're working with to assist you of that issue so that you can continue to get support and services to address that. So I want to commend you. I know that was a setback, but that's progress for me, from my end, seeing where we started, that there's an acknowledgement of a need for help and services. And I'm appreciative of that. Ms. Aguilar, I'm impressed by all that you've done. I think we've come a long way from where we started as well, and that you've worked very hard. And I'm thrilled that we finally have services in place for Malik. And I realize that was a really monumental effort of everyone involved over many months to try to get in place. And I think we're in a good situation right now to take advantage of those services and really see some significant progress with Malik on top of the progress that he's already shown. So we're in a good situation. I think that this case needs to continue. I have concerns about any household where there's admitted drug use as an option long-term that's safe and appropriate for Malik. I mean, I don't think we need to be making shortcuts right now when we've worked so hard to find and to make this much progress. And I realize that housing is a major barrier, but I've heard of some good options today. I hear from Mr. Schaefer that he has tried to really assess all the potential relatives that are available that could be, housing until public housing becomes available. I just think those efforts need to continue. And I do think a family group conference would be helpful to get this last piece of the puzzle in place and to address any other existing concerns as brought up. We have the issue of, what's appropriate to eat. All of those things can be, I think we're winding down. We are getting and making significant progress, and we're down to what I think are some final issues that need to be resolved. I see that Mr. Agosto has posted in the chat about some additional services that he is engaged in. And again, I appreciate that. And I think that I want you to continue doing what you're doing. Just as Ms. Aguilar, I wish to see you continue doing what you're doing. So I would like to continue the case and come back for another compliance hearing on May the 18th at 2 p.m. I believe that there is a Rule 11 agreement that all the proceedings in this case continue virtually. I have that on file, so if anyone has changed their mind
And are you
about
the
that format, you
caseworker for
need
the
to
Hernandez
alert me.
children?
Yes, ma'am.
Where are they currently placed?
They're currently placed with the mother's sister.
How are they doing in that placement?
They are doing pretty well. I know Sophia's got a little fever. She had some shots Friday. So she's kind of, I guess, having a reaction to those a little bit. And they're both having a little bit of diarrhea. But other than that, they are happy. They seem very healthy. And they're very bonded to the caregivers that are in the home.
So neither parent in this case, neither father in this case is established. Is that correct?
Yes.
They're all alleged. Have you been in contact with either father?
I've been in contact with Mr. Hernandez.
Is he in cooperation in terms of getting a DNA appointment set up?
He is, however, I reached out to the legal clerk, Ms. Elijah, yesterday to find out what is the status of that, since I haven't heard anything. And I have not heard back from Ms. Elijah either. She said the referral was sent to the AG's office, but nothing has come back from that yet for an appointment for him.
Have you done service plans in this case?
Yes, I have. I have not filed them since we just had our FGC yesterday.
All right. And which parents attended that FGC?
None of the parents attended that FGC.
Have you been able to send the service plans to the parents' attorneys?
No, I have not.
Can you send them those service plans after court so that they can go over them with their clients?
Yes.
Since Ms. De Leon Hernandez is on the hearing, could you briefly go through what the department is asking her to complete?
Yes, ma'am. She was transported to Journey Recovery in San Angelo. However, she just told me that I'm not sure exactly the reason for the change, but she is in recovery, and the communication has just been a little spotty, I guess, because of her commitment to the recovery process and limited communication where she's at. And so we're requiring her to complete her inpatient recovery. And any recommendations after that, as far as, 12-step meetings, NAAA classes, anything like that, to complete random drug testing, to complete a psychiatric evaluation. We would like her to complete the Becoming Safe group with Family Violence Prevention Services, as well as the A Parent's Journey parenting class with Family Violence Prevention Services.
And I may have missed it, but what are y'all asking for in terms of mental health treatment?
She has been able to reach out to Camino Real. She was there prior, and I don't know if she had reached out to them for psychiatric services or medications or help in that mental health area. But I would ask that she complete the psychiatric assessment with Southtown Psychiatry so that they can assess and address her needs right then and there. And if she needs to be prescribed medication, that can be addressed.
Now, you said that she's an inpatient. Is that kind of the number one concern, the number one thing we want her to focus on first?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Are you just asking this court to approve the service plans, make them orders of the court, and confirm the placement?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And what is being done to locate the missing father? What efforts are you taking to make sure we're doing our due diligence there, Mr. Velasquez?
For Mr. Velasquez, I had gone to Atascosa County Jail, and they told me that he was last incarcerated there November the 15th. But after running his background, it doesn't look like he has any charges from 2022 at all. So I doubt that was actually the Julio Velasquez that was incarcerated. So I've gone to his last addresses, the last two that I have on file, and they are both abandoned. I've called the last phone number, it's disconnected. I've searched through VineLink. There's several of them from Bexar County, several of them from, there were several hits on that name. Let's see what else. I've gone to Wilson County Jail. They don't have any record of Mr. Velasquez. I've gone to Haven for Hope, and they don't have any record of him being there. Ms. Hernandez said that he lives in San Antonio, and some of the addresses that I've gone to, one of them was in San Antonio, and it was abandoned. So I'm not sure of exactly. I should be able to track him down though.
Thank you, Ms. Juarez. I'll pass the
So
witness.
what is the plan for visitation for mom?
So right now, mom's having phone calls with the kiddos. But once she returns, it will be weekly visits for 1 hour with Children Matter.
Okay, and with the age of the children, how are phone visits going? How does that work?
From what Miss Leal has told me, that Cyrus holds the phone up and walks around and kind of babbles and talks to mom on the phone, and mom is able to understand, kind of what they're saying, even though Sophia is not really verbal either, that she also kind of babbles and talks to mom, and that they respond to her voice, they recognize her, and so apparently those are going very well. I have not witnessed those myself.
Now, we had asked for virtual visits. Is that an issue with the facility not providing that?
That's one of the questions that I wanted to ask Miss Hernandez myself, why they weren't virtual as well.
Okay, all right, no further questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Hernandez, what services are you requiring of him on his service plan?
Mr. Hernandez has no criminal history, no prior drug use. He has his 4 children. He is responsible. I was able to meet with him at 5 o'clock in the morning before he went to work. There's not many concerns with him. I think if the department has a concern, it's just how he can help his children with Miss Hernandez, go through this process, seeing their mom struggle and their siblings in, someone else's care. And so we were recommending him to do a psychological and follow any recommendations from there.
And have you discussed your request of a psychological with Mr. Hernandez?
I have not.
Does he have any past mental health issues that would require a psychological?
No, none that are known.
Do you believe that possibly offering therapy, if he feels it's necessary for his children, would be a better way to assist him in helping the 4 children not subject of this case deal with their mother's current situation?
Yes, I think that therapy is always a good idea, especially for children, but I would leave that up to his, parenting and what the recommendations would be from that psychological as well.
Okay, thank you. I'll pass the witness.
Yes, have you been able to get with Mr. Hernandez to locate Mr. Velasquez?
I was only able to meet with Ms. Hernandez for a very brief amount of time before she went to rehab, and all she stated that was he was living in San Antonio. Not very specific. She kind of described it to me, but it was 4 o'clock in the morning, and I was not very coherent.
Okay. Will you see if you can work with Mr. Hernandez to see if she knows, or maybe family members know where in San Antonio we can locate him, and maybe a social media page that we can try to contact him on?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Pass the witness.
Has a home study been done on Rachel Leal's home?
No, the home study is set to be on this Saturday.
And do you have any concerns about the children being with her and her care?
The only concern that I have is that Ms. Hernandez, Ms. Leal seems to not want to let anyone into her home. She seems guarded, and that is a concern. Yes.
Okay, so did something happen when you tried to visit with her recently that caused you concern?
Yes, she did not want to let me in the home. I know that the kinship workers also had difficulties in entering the residence. That she's just stated that it's messy and she doesn't feel comfortable letting us in. And it's just been difficult as far as communication, even with her text messages, phone calls. It's been kind of difficult with her.
Okay, and so when you went into the home, did you have any concerns?
It was messy, but the kiddos were running around playing and they looked very happy. Sophia was in her arms the whole time, and she was definitely clinging to her aunt for comfort because I was a stranger. So that was a good sign. they seem very bonded. Even Cyrus was playing with her son. And, you know, they seem very bonded to the caregivers.
Okay, and how old is her son?
I would have to look back, but I know he's in his 20s.
And does he reside there temporarily, or does he permanently live in that home?
From my understanding, he permanently resides in that home.
And how many bedrooms is in that home?
3.
Are you sure?
No, not 100% sure. She wouldn't let
Okay.
me go into some of the other bedrooms. I think from what I read, it was 3. But again, I'm not 100% sure on that.
Okay. Okay. Have you made any efforts to locate any other family members? It could be a placement.
No, not at this time.
Okay. I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
Just briefly.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Levi.
You stated that there aren't any safety concerns with Mr. Hernandez. Have you asked him why he is not taking his child into his care?
He denies that these are his children. Him and Miss Hernandez were not together at the time.
Thank you. I'll pass the witness.
Are you, did you testify, if I missed it, about the prior paternity testing order for Mr. Hernandez? Are we getting that accomplished?
From my understanding, the referral was sent to the AG's office, but there's nothing, I guess, returned from them to set an appointment.
All right, so that's just something that needs to be followed up on and completed.
Yes, Miss Elijah Muniz was following up on that yesterday, and I haven't heard back from her yet as far as that goes. I don't know if she's on.
All
there.
right. Okay, well then, thank you. Any additional questions for Ms. Juarez from any party? If
No, Your
not,
Honor.
any additional witnesses this morning?
No, Your Honor.
No, Your
Your
Honor.
Honor, I would like to call Ms. Hernandez because we
All right,
have
Ms.
limited
Hernandez.
information from her. Okay, and Cynthia, where are you right now? And how did you end up there instead of the previous recovery center?
I was originally in San Angelo at Journeys. I just didn't like the facility. I didn't feel I was getting anything out of the program. So I went ahead and did my own research and I found this place and I drove myself over here. And I've been here for about going on 2 weeks.
And are you liking that better?
Yes, it's a lot better and I'm getting a lot more out of it.
When are you expecting to complete that program?
On the 31st of March.
Can you tell us about the visits with your children? You've been doing them by phone. Do you have virtual visits available to you?
Yes, I do. To be honest, it's just been hard. Like, it's hard to see my children and not be able to hold them. And, you know, they get all excited when they see me. And I just don't want to put them through that. And of course, myself, you can hear that I'm choking up because, you know, I miss them and I love them and I want to hold them. And that's why I'm here to get better for them. I have a place when I leave. They have their room set up. You know, that's why I'm here working on myself so I could be a better mother to them.
Okay. All right. And do they have any of your other services available there? Do you like as far as parenting or anything like that?
The parent class, I just have to get the certificate and turn it in to Ms. Juarez. I think she had asked me when I had met with her briefly, and I told her that I'll try to get that information to her, but I had already completed it. And yeah, I'm just taking it day by day and I want to complete this program. So I have till the 31st here. And like I said, just do whatever I got to do to get my kids. I mean, but as far as like supervised visits and all that, like it's hard for me to do that because, you know, I have to tell them goodbye. And that's the only reason why it breaks my heart. And I don't want to they don't have to go through this. And I know it's my fault and I take accountability and I'm making it right.
Mr. Velasquez, do you have any more specific information on where his attorney could locate him?
No, ma'am. It's been 2 years since I've spoken with him.
Any social media or like, does he have a Facebook account or anything like that?
No, I have no idea. That was a very toxic relationship and I did my best to erase him from my life because, you know, he would put his hands on me. So I want nothing to do with him.
Okay, I don't have any further questions, Your Honor.
Ms.
All right,
Hernandez,
Ms. Levi.
to your knowledge, are any of your relatives or the paternal relatives members of a registered Native American tribe?
Not that I'm aware of.
Thank you. I'll pass the witness.
Can I hear, Ms. Waite, do you have a report to share on behalf of the children?
Yes, Your Honor. So when I went to visit the children, I had the same experience that Ms. Juarez had. The aunt did not want to let me in the house. She was not going to let me see the children. I had to explain to her again, talk to her on the phone, what my position is and the responsibilities I have to the court and the responsibilities she has to cooperate with those. So she had to think about it before she'd let me in the house. And the children did look great and they are very bonded to her. I mean, very happy to see the change in the way they looked from the time that I saw them when they were with their mothers. Very different. The house was very cluttered, a little dirty, not terribly so, more cluttered than dirty. And she told me it was a 2-bedroom house. You know, it's small. I was concerned that she has an adult son living there who seems, I couldn't figure out what his role was. She also had a granddaughter that's maybe in kindergarten, and she was, you know, also there instead of in public school. I was, you know, wondering about that. And the adult son, she showed me where the children sleep. The adult son sleeps in the same bedroom with the 2 little children. I'm not happy about that. And while I was there, she had a granddaughter drop in. It seems like she feeds people at lunchtime, and that's when I was there, was lunchtime. The adult granddaughter dropped in. She really looked under the influence, and I was concerned about that. When she saw me, she pretty much turned around and left. So I do have concerns about things like that. But other than that, the children look pretty good, and they are happy.
All right. Okay, well then, I thank you for that extra insight, Ms. Boyd. And let me say this, based on the testimony the court has heard today, the court is going to find that each of the service plans developed for the parents in this case are reasonable and appropriate under the circumstances to address the concerns that led to the department's involvement and to help promote family reunification. As such, the court will make them a formal order of the court today. In addition, the court is going to continue the current placement of the children with Ms. Liao. And that is understanding that the ordered home study will be completed and end up being favorable as well. We need that home study to support continued placement. And I think there may be, this case was for quite a long time in investigations and then in family-based, and Ms. Liao may not completely understand the difference at this time between the legal orders that are in place, the fact that the department is now the temporary managing conservator and has to have a legal, I mean, is legally entitled to access to those children, and that Ms. Voigt, as the attorney and guardian ad litem, requires that access as well. I'm glad you were able to show her, but I think that there needs to be a very clear discussion with Ms. Liao about this court's expectations. I want to continue the kids there. It sounds like they're very bonded to her, and that is where they need to belong and stay, but she cannot refuse access to the parties in this matter who are entitled to observe how they are doing. And I don't know if Ms. Falkowitz, you might, I'm trying to think who could be best equipped to have that discussion. Ms. DeLeon Hernandez, Ms. Falkowitz, she may need to hear it from you, that this is, you know, this is an not negotiable. It is an absolute expectation. And if there's not a better response in terms of communication and a willingness to allow access, that may be a problem and may prevent the children from being able to continue in her home. And I don't want that. So I'd like the matter cleared up. And I don't want to hear this at a future setting that there are ongoing issues obtaining access to the home for these children. So I'm going to request that of you today to try to clear up that issue for Ms. Juarez and Ms. Voigt to continue to have access to the children and the home, as well as the home study provider. I do want to say, Ms. Hernandez, that I'm happy that you are where you are, and I realize how difficult this is, and I just want to commend you for doing this work. The fact that you are, you recognize you weren't getting the help that you needed at the last facility and program, and that you've made this change and are getting the help you need now. I'm happy that you're doing that, and that you're I'm optimistic that you're going to be successful in completing this program. And then I just want to encourage you that it doesn't end there. You've got to follow through with the aftercare and the ongoing services and AA and A to ensure that you are maintaining your sobriety when you are back in an unstructured setting. So just I keep up the good work. You've started off doing the most important thing that you can do in getting treatment, and we'll build from there. Court does have to admonish you, Ms. Hernandez, that the state of Texas gives parents in your situation 1 year to show the court your ability to provide your child with a safe, stable, drug-free, and violence-free home. If you're unable to do that within that span of time, your rights are subject to being restricted like they are right now, or terminated, which means cut off altogether. Ms. Hernandez, do you understand that?
Yes, I understand that.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much. All right. So is there anything else that I need to address at this time? If
No,
not, thank you all. We're set for a permanency review before final order, and the court will recognize that the department is present, represented by Ms. Leslie Levi, and joined by both Ms. Myra Morales and Ms. Lisa Juarez with Belong. In addition, the court will recognize that Ms. Kathleen Savage is present. She is the attorney for the respondent mother, Carla Guerrero. I believe Ms. Guerrero is present as well. Ms. Stacy January is here on behalf of the unknown father. We have Ms. Cecilia Hellrung here as the attorney for the respondent. Fernandez is participating by phone. Ms. Maria Garza is here as the attorney for the respondent father, Adrian Oliva. I don't believe Mr. Oliva is present. And we do have with us as well Ms. Elizabeth Fisher. She is the attorney and guardian ad litem for the children. We also have CASA of South Texas present. And I think we are ready to get started. There's been a request of Ms. Hellrung to address Mr. Roy Fernandez and his child first before we address every other party in the case, given the fact that Mr. Fernandez needs to attend a class at 11:30.
You're the caseworker for the Fernandez children.
Yes, ma'am.
Where are they currently placed?
Roy is currently placed with his maternal grandparents in Atascosa County, and the other 4 children are currently placed in a GRO in Gonzales County.
All right. Now, per the court's request, can we talk about Roy's participation in his family plan of service, Mr. Fernandez?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Fernandez remains incarcerated at the Ramsey unit. It is my understanding that he's currently participating in a parenting class and should be finished with that class later this month. Other than that parenting course, there isn't really any other service available to him. He is eligible for parole later in July of this year, but we don't know for sure whether he may be out or he will have to remain there longer. I believe the longest it is that he can't stay there is up until January of 2025.
Are there any other services that he is able to complete while he is incarcerated?
Not at this time.
Are there outstanding safety concerns that the department would like him to address upon his release?
I know that he's reported to the courtesy worker that drugs has always been an issue in his life. He does state that drugs continue to be inside of the unit that he's currently in. So just addressing the sobriety once he is released.
Okay. And he is the father for the father of any other children?
No, ma'am.
All right. And Roy is with his maternal grandparents. How's Roy doing in his placement?
Roy is doing well. He's very happy and content being placed with his maternal grandparents. He does wish that, you know, his siblings were placed in the same home as he is. He does see his siblings every Friday from 3:30 to 5:30 at Children Matters, and those visits go very well. He's in the 8th grade. He just finished football season with the school. He enjoyed that. He's currently participating in athletics, so that keeps him busy. He did, during my visit in January with him, he mentioned that he had a lot of anger and resentment and thought that he would benefit from therapy. Ms. Balderas with Kinship did make the referral to Chosen for him to receive wraparound services, not only for the trauma, but therapeutic, and then also provide parent coaching for the maternal grandparents. So that is in the works. I know that from speaking to maternal grandmother, she stated that Chosen had reached out to her and they've been in communication in order to get those services started.
Now, speaking of the other children, you mentioned that they wanted to be with their maternal grandparents. Why has that placement not occurred?
Maternal grandparents have a denied home study. So there is concerns with their protective capacity when it comes to the other children.
And what was it denied for?
There was another legal case with another daughter of theirs. Her rights were terminated last year. But during that case, grandparents were a safety plan for the family. Unfortunately, during the case, there was a baby death. And with the fractures and the autopsy, the timeline, there's concerns that those injuries may have occurred while while grandparents were the safety plan for the child.
You mentioned that the other children are in a GRO. Can you outline briefly for the court the placement unit's efforts to find them a home-like environment?
Our placement team, Ms. Felicia McCoy, continues to search for a foster home for the remaining children. But at this time, she has not been able to obtain or locate a foster home that's able to take all 4 children.
And you're going to work with them to continue that search. Is that accurate?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, switching gears to talk about the other parents. How is the mother doing on her service plan?
At this time, when it comes to Miss Carla, the main concern with her is her sobriety. She has admitted to me as recent as last month that she continues to use methamphetamines and marijuana. So the #1 goal for her was to go into an inpatient facility program. She was able to get a bed date to go, but unfortunately she left before the day was over. So she was only there for a couple of hours and then left the program.
Okay, and we're about halfway through our statutory time period for this case. Is that accurate?
Yes, ma'am.
And have you explained to Ms. Guerrero that if she does not address her substance abuse, we're at the point in the case where we're going to start looking at termination of parental rights and changes in permanency plan?
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Guerrero is aware.
And we've told her that if she's going to get started on anything, the #1 thing to get started on is that substance abuse treatment program.
Yes, it is. I have spoken to Ms. Guerrero, and she has started reaching back out to Alpha Home, as well as Journey Recovery and Nexus Recovery in San Angelo and Dallas, to see if she can get another bed available to her. But it is my understanding as of this morning, Ms. Guerrero reports that she will start an outpatient program with Alpha Home on March 17th. In the meantime, as she waits for a bed availability for residential treatment.
Okay. Now, have you heard from Mr. Martinez or Mr. Oliva during this case?
So Mr. Martinez, his girlfriend Brittany did reach out to me last week on Monday. That was my first interaction with Mr. Jason Martinez. He did report that he is coming back from working out of state in Wyoming. He stated that he is going to stay here in the Poteet area permanently moving forward and would like to re-engage in visitation with his children as well as work services. So I did make those 2 referrals. We are asking him to complete individual therapy and address parenting in his therapy sessions, as well as I made the referral to Children Matters for him to reinstate his visitation. I did ask him to go in for a drug test that day. He did go in and that test did come back negative.
And was that a UA or a hair?
It was UA.
Okay, can we get him to go in for a hair to get kind of a baseline?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and does he have any criminal or substance abuse history that would be a red flag for the department?
Yes, ma'am, he does. There is drug history. Currently, right now, he is living with his mother. So when it comes to his stability and housing, he's still actively searching for somewhere to live. He will continue being employed in the oil field, but here locally. But at this time, there is concerns just based off the history with his past drug usage. And at this point, we would like for him to address that in therapy.
Okay, and what about our last father, Mr. Oliva?
Mr. Oliva, my first interaction with him was actually this past Friday. I've attempted to reach out to him previously via phone and home visits with no success. It just so happened to be that Mr. Oliva was dropping off Ms. Guerrero, the mother, to her parent-child visit. So I was able to catch him in the parking lot and speak to him. At this time, he does not believe that Xavier is his son, as he states that Ms. Guerrero and him completed an in-home DNA test that resulted in him not being the father to Xavier. I did explain to him that we would need for him to complete a DNA test through the Attorney General's office. I did provide that date to him. I'm not sure if he will go. He states that he has had previous terminations and that he's worked with the department before, and that was nothing but bad news for him. But I did provide that information to him.
At this time, are you asking that no parent be found in compliance and that the court continue the placements and the service plans in this case?
Yes, ma'am.
I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
When was the last time that the courtesy worker was able to meet with my client?
I believe it was February 27th.
Okay. Is he having any contact with his son, either in writing or over the phone?
I do not believe so. I know that he does write to Roy, but I have not asked Roy if he has written back to Mr. Fernandez.
Okay. And at this time, are there any concerns with Roy Jr.?
There is, when it comes to his schooling, he has missed school to where now he will have to attend Saturday school to make up hours. When it comes to his grades, he does tend to forget to or not complete assignments. So I've had the discussion with him about keeping his grades up. And when it comes to the absences, I do believe that one of the main factors was that previously the parent-child visits, sibling visits on Fridays were a bit early to where he was missing all day Friday. But that has been addressed and we now have a later time. But it seems like right now we have a plan moving forward to ensure that Roy attends school regularly and is submitting all class assignments.
Okay. And what is the permanency plan right now for Roy Jr.? Is the department asking that he remain in his current placement long-term? Or I know that the primary goal is reunification, but if reunification did not happen?
So our primary goal when it comes to Roy right now is for him to remain in his placement with his maternal grandparents.
Okay. And they are willing and able to care for him long-term?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I have nothing further, Your Honor. Thank you.
Ms. Morales, are all the referrals for the mother services still active?
They are. When it comes to her individual therapy, I did have to change that provider just due to that the previous provider discharging her due to her not attending those sessions. But there has been a new referral and a new provider for her to be able to engage in individual therapy.
And who is that provider?
It is AB Counseling, and they are able to provide virtual services for her.
Okay. And then parenting classes, who will those be set up through?
So those will remain with San Antonio Fatherhood Campaign, and that was the service provider from the initial family plaintiff service. So that will remain the same. They're still able to offer that service virtually as well.
Okay. And then the psychological that she completed recommended domestic violence, is that going to be included in her therapy, or is that going to be a separate service?
That is correct. It will be addressed in therapy.
Okay, perfect. In regards to her drug treatment, since she's getting engaged in the outpatient program, will that be acceptable to the department if she is able to complete that successfully and test negative?
At this time, we are asking for Ms. Guerrero to complete inpatient treatment. I am glad that she's willing to complete outpatient while she gets a bed. But just due to the history of her drug usage and her continued usage throughout this legal case, I do believe that inpatient is the most appropriate.
If Ms. Guerrero was able to get a bed at Journey Recovery or Volunteers of America, would the children be able to be placed with her? As I know both of those facilities allow children to be with their parents.
At this time, no, ma'am.
Okay. What would the department want to see from her before that could be a possibility?
We would like for her to complete the recovery treatment and her fully engaged in individual therapy as well as parenting.
Okay. How do the visitations go between the mother and the children?
Ms. Guerrero is very appropriate during all of her visits with her children. She does bring food, snacks. She's very loving towards them. Before they leave, they all pray together. So when it comes to visits, she's very appropriate, very loving. They're very good visits.
And the children are extremely bonded to her?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Has Belong been able to explore any other possible family placements or kinship placements?
Yes, ma'am. So since reaching out to, or since getting in contact with Mr. Jason Martinez, he did state that his mother, Ms. Viola Martinez, previously had worked with the department, and she currently has PMC of 3 of her other grandchildren. So at this time, we will be completing a preliminary home study. Right now, Mr. Martinez is residing with his mother. So of course, he would have to move out in order for that to be an option to look at, but that's something that he's willing to do. When it comes to Ms. Guerrero, she hasn't provided any names, but her mother has. So her mother provided me with 2 older sisters of mom's. I did reach out to them, but I haven't heard back. And maternal grandmother is working with me in being able to get in contact with them to see if they would be interested in being placement or just being a support for the family.
Perfect. And then in regards to Viola Martinez, would she be willing to take all 4 of the younger children, or would it just be Mr. Martinez's children that she would take?
So it would just be Mr. Martinez's children, just due to her older age and Xavier's young age. But on that note, Mr. Martinez's girlfriend, Brittany, she did state that, her mother may be interested in being placement for Xavier, but at this time, I do believe that that's something that Ms. Guerrero is not in agreement with.
Okay. And that would still leave us needing a placement for Eliana?
No, so Eliana is Mr. Martinez's daughter.
Okay, so that would be for Jason, Esperanza, and Eliana.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I will pass the witness, Your Honor.
Now, if Mr. Oliva is indicating he's not the biological father of Xavier, has the mother or any other individuals given you a potential name of an unknown father?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Have you asked the mom who she believes to be the child's father?
Ms. Guerrero does state that Mr. Adrian is the father to Xavier.
Thank you. Pass it.
All right. Ms. Garza, any questions?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you. Now, with regard to Mr. Oliva, you indicated that the department would need him to come forward in order to take a DNA test. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and I know it seems that he appeared to be not ecstatic to be involved with the department from past history, but did he indicate a willingness to come through for that DNA test in this particular situation?
He did, yes.
Okay, and by any chance was it expressed to him that if he is not the father of the child, that he could be dismissed out of the suit, not have to deal with CPS?
Yes, ma'am. I did explain to him that, if it is determined that he's not the father, then, he would no longer be a part of this legal suit. So at the end of the conversation, he did state that he was going to submit for his sample.
Okay, wonderful. And I might have missed this, but when was it that you had this conversation with him?
It was this past Friday.
Now, with regards to this in-home test, does mom also confirm what Mr. Oliva states to you regarding the results of that home test?
I have not had that conversation with Ms. Guerrero.
And to your knowledge, does Ms. Guerrero still believe Mr. Oliva is the father of this child?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. No further questions.
Ms. Fisher, any questions?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Morales, where is Ms. Guerrero currently living?
When it comes to Ms. Guerrero's housing situation and living arrangements, it's very sporadic. It changes on a weekly basis. She stays in Pleasanton and Poteet, just with friends, and she calls her sister-in-law. So it just varies.
Okay, well, I noticed today that Mrs. Guerrero is with her mother, the maternal grandmother. Is there any concern that she's staying there where Roy is placed?
No, there's no concern with Miss Carla having any type of unsupervised access to Roy. Grandma and Miss Carla did call me this morning asking if it would be okay for them to meet at the city park. Right now, Miss Carla does not have access to Wi-Fi or a cell phone. So Grandma is allowing Miss Carla to participate using her phone. So they're at the city park right now, and that was something they did inform me earlier today.
Okay. And now I believe you said earlier that on one of the visits, Mr. Oliva dropped Ms. Guerrero off for a visit. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you aware, is she still in a relationship with Mr. Oliva?
They both report that they are not in a relationship, but Mr. Oliva states that he does assist her with transportation and at times just side jobs.
Okay, because the domestic violence that's involved in this case was between Mr. Oliva and Mrs. Guerrero, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, regarding Roy, is there any concern about the maternal grandparents' oversight of his grades and knowing what's going on with his schooling?
Yes, ma'am. I do believe since the maternal grandparents are Spanish speaking, at times Roy isn't fully honest to the grandparents. But I do believe now that I'm going to be in contact with Roy's school counselor, I will be able to articulate any information to maternal grandmother. And I do believe that will assist because when it comes to maternal grandmother, she's more than willing to do whatever is necessary in order for Roy to, to have all of his needs met.
Okay. And you said that Mrs. Guerrero has done her psychological evaluation, her OSAR, and she attends her parent-child visits really regularly, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
But she hasn't engaged in parenting classes, therapy, and refuses to do drug tests?
She doesn't refuse to do the drug test, but she's constantly changing her phone numbers to where either she's not receiving them or she's ignoring them. But yes, at this time, I have not been able to get a drug test result from Ms. Guerrero.
How many times have you asked for a drug test?
I've asked 3 times.
Okay. And she has admitted to using certain drugs, but you would still like a drug test, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Do you think that would the department be okay with Roy having any kind of contact, if it could be by Zoom or video, with his father who's currently incarcerated?
I don't believe that there would be an issue. When I've spoken to Roy, he has nothing but good memories with his father. So I don't believe that that would be an issue. I mean, Roy is 13. You know, in the event that anything or he feels uncomfortable, he's able to end the call himself, or we can definitely make some sort of arrangement for that.
So if it's possible with the jail, it's okay with the department?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'll pass the witness.
Just briefly. Since the mother is on the call right now, would it be possible for you to set up that drug test and give her the information on where to go and when?
Yes, ma'am. So the facility is there in Pleasanton. It's called Genesis Drug Testing. And I did provide the information to the grandmother for previous drug testing. So she also has the address. So since they're together right now, I can forward that information to the grandmother. That way they can have it, but I can have that ready within the next 30 minutes.
Thank you. I'll pass the witness.
All right, Miss Savage, it looks like your client may wish to speak. So let me swear you in, Miss Guerrero. Can I get you to put your hand down and raise your right hand? Do you swear and affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, Miss Savage, you may proceed.
Yes, Ms. Guerrero, you wanted to make the court aware of something. What would that be at this time?
The thing is, I haven't been able to go to the Genesis is because they want an ID. I don't have a Texas ID, so they usually ask for my caseworker to go, like, to confirm it. But right now that I'm with my mom, I'm gonna be going into Roy's school, and they have a copy of my ID. That way I could be able to go and provide the drug test for y'all.
Okay. So it is your intent to comply with that request from the department?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Is there any information or anything else you're needing from the department in order for you to help get started in your services?
No, ma'am. I just wanted to see if there's a way, if my other 3 children go with their paternal grandmother, if there's a way that maybe my mother could get Xavier. She already has my son Roy. If it's a possible thing. I also looked into the VOA where I used to reside before. For they let you have a child up to 2 years old, and I just wanted to try to know, you know, my past. I know my history is not the best, but I'm trying. I don't want nobody to give up on me because I love my children. This drug addiction is a very, very, very hard disease to be in. You know, that does not mean that I don't love my children. I just want you to know that I'm really trying, and then I'm willing to work with anything you're giving me. I'm willing to work. I did go to a NA meeting on Tuesday. I'll be going today again. It's Tuesdays and Tuesdays.
Perfect. Thank you, Ms. Guerrero. I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right. Anyone else have questions for Ms. Guerrero?
Judge, could I just ask one question?
Yes, Ms. January.
Ms. Guerrero, is there anyone else that could be Xavier's father?
Yes, ma'am.
And what would that name be?
His name is Juan Bosques.
Juan Bosques.
Bosques.
Okay. All right. Thank you, ma'am. That's all I have.
Do you have any other identifying information for Mr. Bosques, Ms. Guerrero, like his date of birth?
I believe that he is familiar. He is related to and I spoken with him, and he does not want to do nothing with the baby.
Where does he reside, to your knowledge? And how recently have you had communication with him?
It's been about a month and a half. I live in I'm staying right now with my sister, and I live here in Pleasanton, and Mr. Bosques lives maybe like 2 blocks from me, but we do not speak.
So you even have an address that you would be able to provide Ms. Morales if needed?
Yes, I could. I have one. I could send it to her.
All right. Okay. Then thank you, Ms. Guerrero. Any other questions for Ms. Guerrero at this time? If not, may I ask Ms. Fisher if you have a report to make on behalf of the children?
Yes, Your Honor. Regarding Roy, I visited with him yesterday, and I was concerned because I read the CASA volunteers report, and I was concerned about the 21 grade in algebra and some of the missing schools, missing school. And I also spoke with Ms. Morales about that. And I do believe that the school missing was the Fridays. Now their visits are at 3:30. So he's probably going to be taken out a little early, but not miss as much time. he was out for a couple of days because he had sprained his ankle. Now, originally he told me he was on the honor roll, but then I asked him about the 21, and he said that when he was out for a sprained ankle, he had a couple of missing assignments, and so it was based on those assignments were not turned in. But he said he's working on it, and I know in the fall he was in football, and so he had motivation to keep those grades up. He's planning on doing track and baseball in the spring. So he said he's going to be working on those, and he will continue to work on those. I think maybe we need to actually get the actual parts from the school. That might be the best way, because he was going to tell me he was on the honor roll. But he did tell me that he was going to a group counseling therapy session at school every Wednesday. With it's an optional thing, and he is really enjoying that. Because I'd asked him if he would like to do therapy or counseling, and he said he was doing that, and he didn't think he needed the individual, but it sounds like maybe he does still. So I think that that's okay to go forward with that. The other children, they're doing great. They're happy. They're they're all together. Their cousins are at the same location, and all reports of visits with mom go well. I'm actually going to go to one on tomorrow afternoon. But the children, they miss their mom and they love her. And I just want to stress to Ms. Herrera that she needs to get working on these services, because we're, I think, 7 months in on the case. And I think it was July. I was looking at it. And we really haven't gotten anything hardly accomplished. And as far as parenting or associate placement, July of last year, I believe. If that's correct. And so I just encourage her to get working on the services and get the drug treatment, because the kids want to go home and they miss their mom. And Roy tells me how he tries to encourage her and to not be sad, but use these things that are making her sad as motivation. And so I really want to just stress that on behalf of the children.
Well, thank you all. Thank you, Ms. Fisher. Let me ask at this time if Ms. Priadka, if you have anything you would like to add in addition to the report you've shared. Yes, there you go.
Yes.
What would you like to discuss in light of the testimony today?
The grades were my concern for Roy, and I'm also concerned about he's sleeping on the couch in the home, and I would like for him to have a bed.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable request. I think that's something we can work on. So, all right. Well, based on the testimony the court has heard today, the court at this time is going to continue the current placements of the children, Roy with the maternal grandparents and the remaining children at their current placement. The court finds that continuation of those placements are in their individual best interests, and that all of their physical, emotional, academic, and developmental needs are being met there presently. However, I've heard some options today as far as potential relative placements or kinship placements that are absolutely worth pursuing, and that I am ordering the department through Belong to follow up on and to pursue home studies on those individuals and to assess all of those options. So I think what I heard today sounds promising, and I'd like for you to explore the potential for those relative placements. The court also is going to find that as of today, there would be a continuing danger to the health or safety of these children if they were to be returned home to any of their parents. At this point in time, there is no parent in full compliance with their plan of service, and we have a considerable amount of work to do for any of the parties. I'm glad to hear that Mr. Martinez is coming back to the area and indicates an interest in working services and reinitiating his relationship with his children. That's promising. But I think what I want to do, since Ms. Guerrero, you're here and present, I just want to really urge you to pursue the drug treatment options and to follow through and not give up on your sobriety and that effort to maintain it. I'm really disappointed you were not successful at Alpha Home, because that's a good program and it's hard to get into. It's a very sought after program, but you really need inpatient treatment, and you've got to go and stay and you've got to do the work. And I don't mean to say that it's easy to do. I'm not here to tell you it's easy. I know that it's not. You mentioned your addiction, that it's difficult, and I know that it is, but it's going to prevent these children from being returned to your care if you don't acknowledge that it has to be addressed, and that you have to find a way to resist that temptation and to make a choice to be sober and present for your children. So I'm going to order that you go to inpatient if you need another OSAR to do that, or for Ms. Morales just to continue to work to find additional options for treatment throughout the state. There are other options, and we just need to find them and get you in there. Okay. As far as our trial setting, we are set for trial on May the 18th at 1. I do think that this case would benefit from mediation, and I'd like to refer it to mediation with Ms. Rochelle Acevedo. Other temporary orders will remain in place. And I do want to make sure that Roy has a bed. And so I'll ask Ms. Morales if you need to work with the local child welfare board or access concrete funds to assist with that. I think he does need a bed at this time. So is there anything else that we need to address? All right, well, if not, thank you all. All parties are excused.
Thank you.
Your Honor.
Yes, Mr. Fernandez.
Yes, Mr. Fernandez. Hey, I was wondering if I can get an address, because since last year they've been telling me if I want to write to my son that they were going to provide me with an address, and I've requested it like 3 times already from the caseworker whenever I spoke over the phone, and she has notified me that she'd get back with me, but I still haven't had any luck with that.
All right. I mean, the address for Roy, you're
right
to reach out and
I have the address to the home, but they told me that it'd be better if I sent it to the CPS, to them, and I haven't received an address for them.
Ms. Morales, do you have an address that you can share for Mr. Fernandez to utilize to write to his child? All right. Thank you, Mr. Fernandez, for bringing that up.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much.
All right.
And about the visitation, I've been told since last year that I would have one, and I still haven't received one.
I think I've made it clear at previous hearings that I don't have an issue with the visits between, or phone calls for that matter, with Roy and his father. But logistically, I think that the issues about how that happens is difficult for me to navigate with limited knowledge of everyone's schedules, and especially the facility, the rules and regulations, and if there's any potential for Zoom or other like virtual visits as well. So I'm just going to order the department to assess what options there are and to facilitate Roy's communication with his father and visitation in whatever form it is, we're capable of facilitating. All right.
And Your Honor, I may need to get an order from the court. I know I've reached out to the jail before. I will do it again. I'll give them a call, the law library a call again today. But it may require an order from the court. And if so, I'll draft that and make sure that you get it.
That's fine. I'm happy to help in whatever way I can.
Judge,
all right.
I was going to mention, we have tablets now, and if I can add my attorney, if she can send me information, I can add her to my visitation list, and she can request a visit, and we can have a visitation through over a tablet instead of in person. And they can't deny me any visits. It doesn't matter if I have school or anything. My visits cannot be denied.
All right. Well, that's great from Ms. Selrung for you to hear. I heard the tablets were coming. I'm glad they're being rolled out and distributed. I think that's going to help immensely.
Ray, I'll just give the jail a call right now as soon as we're off the phone here.
All right. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I'm here in the law library right now.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. If there's nothing further, all parties are excused. We are set today for emergency review before final order, and the court will note that the department is present, represented today by Ms. Leslie Levi, and joined by both Ms. Myra Morales and Ms. Lisa Juarez with Belong, who's joining now. In addition, we have Mr. Michael Finkel here. He is the attorney for the respondent mother, Bernardina Garza. I don't think I see Ms. Garza on the call. We do have Ms. Lisa Voigt here as the attorney for the unknown father. And then we also have Mr. Shea Davis here as the attorney and guardian ad litem for the child. So let's get a quick update. And if you don't mind, since I'm eager to have some lunch, I'm going to ask these questions myself. Ms. Morales, what is Ms. Garza's participation in the case right now?
Your Honor, Ms. Garza has not been in participation in her court-ordered services or kept in communication with myself.
All right, and so there were some significant issues at our last hearing in terms of engagement in services. She was not engaged in any services, and that has not changed.
Your Honor, since that court hearing, the only service that she has completed was her psychological evaluation, and that was in late January. There was no new recommendations, but when it comes to her parenting, individual therapy, OSAR assessment, MHMR, any drug testing, and she has not participated in visitation as well. So when it comes to her other services, she's not in compliance.
All right, and so what is the status in assessing Julian's paternity?
The DNA test for Mr. Christopher Guzman did come back. He is not the father to baby Julian. I haven't been able to speak to Ms. Garza to notify her that Mr. Guzman is not the father, but from the last conversation I had, I did ask if she was certain if there was any other individuals that may be the father pending the DNA test results, and she was very adamant that there was no one else, and that Mr. Guzman was the father to Julian.
All right, so at this time, we have an unknown father for Julian and no real potential candidates that we could try to locate and serve and involve in this process.
That's correct, Your Honor.
All right, and you've said you've had difficulty reaching her since the last setting as well, even to discuss the outcome of the paternity testing.
That's correct. I've attempted multiple home visits. She does reside with her parents, but it is a gated property on acreage. So I do leave my business card out there. I wait 5 to 10 minutes and just park there on the side, but I haven't been able to reach her or her parents for that fact.
All right, well, how is Julian doing?
Julian is doing very well. He is thriving in his placement. He is in a kinship home, a maternal cousin of Ms. Garza. He's able to keep in contact with his maternal grandparents, as well as other family members. He did have a ECI evaluation. He did not meet the requirements for services because he is on target with all of his milestones. I mean, he is thriving. He is loved in that home. All of his needs are being met at this time.
All right, so you're advocating for continuation of that placement?
Yes, ma'am. And they are currently working with Divinity to get licensed. So they are almost complete with that. So they're doing very well.
All right, well, you answered my question before I asked it. So at this time, what is the permanency goal for Julian?
It is relative adoption by his current placement.
All right, Ms. Levi, do you have additional questions for Ms. Morales?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Finkel?
No, Your Honor.
Ms. Voigt?
Yes. When you speak with the maternal cousin, does she know of any potential fathers for Julian?
No, ma'am.
Or have any recommendations for other contacts?
She does
that
not.
might know?
No, ma'am.
Okay. And okay, thank you.
All right, let me ask Mr. Davis, any questions from you?
No questions, Judge.
Do you have a report?
Yes, Your Honor, as mentioned by the worker, Julian's doing great. He's 8 months now, eating and drinking well, developmentally on target, and as stated, he didn't need ECI, found no concerns, and he's reaching all of his milestones. But other than that, he's up to date on his medical. They're doing an amazing job. Placement's appropriate.
All good news. Thank you for sharing that. At this time, the court is going to find that Ms. Garza is not in compliance with her plan of service, and that as of today's date, Julian's father's identity is unknown, and the department has exercised due diligence to try to ascertain his identity and locate and serve him. Mr. Guzman has been excluded as Julian's father, I believe has been dismissed as a party to the suit. And the court at this time is going to continue Julian's placement, find that continuation of that placement is in his best interest, and that all of his physical, emotional, and developmental needs are being met there presently, and that it's in his best interest to remain there, and that there would be a continuing danger to his health and safety if he were to be returned to the care of his mother, Bernardina Garza, at this time. The court is going to find that the department, as the temporary managing conservator, is making reasonable efforts to achieve permanency through the goal of adoption by the current caregiver at this time. Court approves of that goal given the lack of compliance with Ms. Garza with her services. Anything else we need to address at this time? And if not, thank you all. And who am I looking at here on the screen that says Charlie L? Is that potentially Thomas and Priscilla? Yes. Okay, great. It's good to get a little sneak peek. Proceed.
Just for the record, my announcement is not ready.
Okay. Anyone else need to record that for the record as well?
Yes, Your Honor, not ready for my client as well.
Same judge.
And yes, judge, me too, Stacy January.
All right. Well, the court does note that there are no parents present. Their attorneys are well represented and here. And while I'll register your not ready announcements, we will proceed because we need an update as to how the kids are doing. Although these ones right there look like they're doing pretty well. All right, Miss Levi, you may proceed.
And you're the caseworker for the Herrera children?
Yes, ma'am.
Where are they currently placed?
Thomas and Priscilla are placed in a foster home, and Katrina and Mary are placed at Davidson.
Okay, let's start with David and Priscilla. How are they doing in their foster home?
They're doing really well in the foster home. They continue to have congestion, ear infections, and that stuff going on. Their needs are being addressed medically. It's just one of those things that they keep reoccurring. So a referral was sent out to ENT to get them looked at for possible tubes in their ears. Also, Priscilla has her legs are bowed. She was receiving ACI when she was at College Station, but now that she's moved, the referral has been sent, but I don't believe an assessment has occurred yet. But there was a referral to an orthopedics for her for those legs, just to make sure that either she can grow out of it naturally, or if something needs to be done to intervene, that can be addressed.
Are all of her both of their medical and dental up to date?
They are.
And are all of their needs being met in this placement?
Yes, they are.
Okay, now what about the other children who are at the shelter? How are they doing?
Katrina is doing pretty well. She was really looking forward to school. I know that when she was in Austin, the school and the teacher kept me updated on everything that she did. She sent me pictures. She was an amazing teacher. Now it seems like it was brought to my attention at the last visit that Katrina has been biting her arm, and she had a very large bruise on her arm. And so once I kind of found out what was going on, it's been noted in school that she's just frustrated at school. And so there's something not working well with that. And so I have plans to address that with the school tomorrow and see if she's possibly not in the right class. I know that was an issue in Austin, that she was not in the appropriate class. However, her needs were being addressed in the class that she was in. So now I'm afraid that she might be in a special education class and not in the life skills class, because some of the districts don't offer that for kindergarten. So I'm going to make sure that that's taken care of tomorrow.
Okay, and what about Mary?
Mary is doing really well. Also, the only thing that I see that she struggles with is separation. So her being in that placement, personally, I don't feel is in her best interest because of the rotation of the staff. She gets very separated for very attached for 8 hours, and she gets separated, and she has a very hard time when staff leaves. Even as I'm transporting her back and forth to visits, she has a very hard time saying goodbye to mom. It's the same way. She cries. Every little separation, she just has a very hard time with. And I think that she would be better in a foster placement type of setting.
Is Blom continuing to search for a home-like setting for Mary and Katrina?
At this time, no, we are not.
Can you request that they reopen a placement search, given that these are very young children in a GRO?
Actually, I think I take that back. For Katrina and Mary, I believe that we are searching for additional placements. I apologize.
Okay. Can you confirm that just to make sure?
Yes.
Switching gears to talk about the parents, how is the mother doing on her plan of service?
Ms. Herrera is currently working in doing the intensive outpatient with South Texas Rural. From the reports that I've got, she is very open and giving and receiving feedback accordingly. She's having a little bit of a struggle getting over to Divine twice a week. She has transportation, but it's a very large vehicle. It requires a lot of gas. So some resources are being looked into to assist her with that. Let's see. She's also been attending some mental health services with South Texas Rural. She doesn't feel like she needs to take medication, even though they've recommended it. Her and I have talked about that. So I would like to refer her for psychiatric evaluation so she can get, better needs, her needs assessed. She can be diagnosed, and if she needs medication, it can be addressed at that time. So not to delay services. So she said that she feels like some of the medication she was prescribed prior, made her feel like a zombie and that sort of thing. So I want to make sure that the medication is being addressed properly.
Okay. So at this time, would the department consider her in compliance or in partial compliance?
At this time, the department would consider her not in compliance just because she continues to have a relationship with Mr. Michaels. She continues to go see him at the jail. He's supposed to be getting out soon. And when asked if she's going to stay away from him, she says yes, but it's very not convincing. He knows where she's staying. She knows, he knows everything about her. She's being harassed by his friends and associates on text messages. And, she's blaming herself. He's taking no responsibility. And because of that, I would say that she's not in compliance at this time.
And speaking of Mr. Michaels, you said he's still incarcerated. Is he able to do any services in jail?
He is not.
What about the other father? Have you had any contact with him?
I did have contact with him initially, but I didn't realize who he was. After that, I've gone back to that house a few times and they've said that, oh, he just left, or they've given me excuses. The last time I went there, the same exact lady said that she didn't know who he was, which is very confusing. So I've left my business card multiple times at that address. I also have searched at a couple of other addresses in Jordanton and one in Floresville for him. The jails, I've looked around a lot of different places. I do have a couple of other alternate things that I need to try to find him that I've just recently come across. So
could you give the court a brief update on the sexual allegations that were first brought up at our last hearing?
Yes, ma'am. Katrina had made the outcry. However, it was very unclear as to the nature of it, if it was for physical abuse or exactly what she was outcrying. She just said, no, daddy, no. It was during diaper change time. And some of the things that she had stated, she's not extremely verbal, but there are very specific phrases that she does say well. However, when she was forensically interviewed, she couldn't identify her name and she couldn't really answer any questions. And without them asking very leading questions, she couldn't be assessed. It was unclear as to who she was referring to as daddy, whether it was Mr. Michaels, whether it was, some of the other children's father, if it was, her grandfather. It was very unclear because she does refer to a lot of men as daddy, and the same, she refers to a lot of women as mommy.
So at this point, are we asking that the placements continue and that none of the parents be found to be fully in compliance?
Yes, that's correct.
Are you familiar with, were you present for the placement hearing, the motion to place filed by the intervener?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you recall testimony that the grandmother and grandfather are not in a romantic relationship?
Yes, ma'am.
Have you been able to look at the social media pages for the maternal grandparents?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you see anything there that would lead you cause for concern in regards to the request for placement?
There have been posts with grandma and grandpa together, and messages of a romantic relationship.
I'll pass the witness.
Recognize someone has joined the call. It says Stephanie Herrera. If that is you, Ms. Herrera, can you please confirm that? Thank you. All right, so Ms. Herrera is here. Ms. Pearsall, you may proceed with any questions for Ms. Juarez.
Thank you, Honor. And Judge, I'll change my announcement to ready since Ms. Herrera has appeared.
All right, thank you.
Ms. Juarez, what does Ms. Herrera have to do in order to get in compliance?
I mean, she is, doing the services. My only concern for her is that relationship. At this time, that's my largest concern for her is that relationship and addressing her mental health needs. Those two things.
Well, and since Ms. Herrera was a few minutes late, can you explain to her what is the concern with her relationship status?
Yes. Well, I mean, Ms. Herrera and I have talked about this in detail, and she has stated that she will stay away from Mr. Michaels once he's released from incarceration. However, she stated that several times in the past, and they've been together even through the CPS cases. So the concern with that is that the relationship is very volatile. He was arrested for strangulation of her, and she broke his arm. There's been such hostility between each of them. She's very focused on what he's doing and how he feels and the things that he says to her. And she doesn't understand that he's not looking out for the best interest of her or her children. And she continues to see him in jail. She continues to try to call him so he can see the children during visits. And that's a concern.
So what you need her to do is to continue attending her inpatient drug treatment?
Absolutely.
And continue attending Camino Real and the psychiatric you're referring to her to?
That's correct.
Is there any other service that you need her to engage in that she's not already engaged in?
I have sent recommendations or referrals out for domestic violence classes and parenting classes with family violence prevention services, as well as a referral for optimal counseling to start some therapy.
Now, family violence services, domestic violence, and parenting are located in San Antonio, correct?
That's correct.
Is that something that Ms. Herrera can do on Zoom?
That is not.
Okay. And transportation is a big issue for Ms. Herrera, correct?
She has transportation. It's the gas, and she's not currently working a steady job, so that is an issue, and we're exploring resources for her for that.
Where and optimum counseling is also in San Antonio, correct?
I'm sorry, optimal counseling she can do virtually, but the family violence prevention she cannot.
So is there a closer place where she could do domestic violence and parenting?
Because of the service that family violence prevention services provide, and because of the severity of the abuse in this case, I believe that that would be the best class for Ms. Herrera to attend.
There's a million parenting classes online.
True.
So is there a reason we cannot do a different parenting class to minimize the gas and the driving?
I believe parenting class and domestic violence, they can be done at the same facility, at the one right after the other.
Well, could you look into a different parenting class was my question.
Oh, yes, I can. Okay. We also did explore Any Baby Can. They also have a lot of programs for parents of autistic children. And so she was referred to them initially, just she hadn't been able to get that set up with.
And then as far as parent-child visit, is there anything Ms. Herrera can or should do to make her visits go a little better?
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Herrera can come prepared, bringing food and snacks and different things for the children, especially something for them to interact with, be it toys or a book or anything other than her phone or a tablet.
something to get it on the floor and play with them. She's on the floor, but she's struggled in keeping all of them together, as you know, it's difficult with 4 children anyway, especially with the varying levels of behaviors that these kiddos have. But just to come a little bit more prepared with diapers, wipes, stuff for them to eat and snack on, and an activity would be very beneficial for her. Yes.
What is the permanency plan right now?
It is family reunification.
So if Ms. Herrera continues to attend her services and does the other services that are still outstanding, your plan is to work with mom to reunify all of the children with her.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, if she fails to engage and do her services, is the department's plan going to change?
Yes, ma'am.
And what is the department's plan going to change to?
The concurrent goal at this time is relative adoption.
Okay, which is a fancy way of saying your plan is termination of parental rights.
Yes, ma'am.
Now the questions.
Your Honor, have you had the opportunity to speak with my client while he's incarcerated?
Yes, ma'am.
Did he express that he wanted to work services as soon as he's released?
He has not expressed that he wants to, but it was made clear to him to contact me as soon as he gets out to set up services for him. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Juarez. No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, Ms. January.
Yes. Now, I believe you had mentioned Father Mr. Michaels, and then you indicated the other father. Are you referring to Geronimo Hernandez?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And so you have had contact with him at least once?
Once, yes.
Okay. And you've had some addresses where you've attempted contact?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And do you have a phone number for him?
No, the phone number that I have has been disconnected.
Okay. And when you did have that one contact, how was that? How did he get in touch with you, or did you get in touch with him?
I was actually visiting Miss Herrera and Mr. Michaels, and I thought that there was a man and a woman standing outside when I pulled up. I believe that was Stephanie and Robert. I had never met them before. And he said, when I asked, I said, I'm looking for Stephanie and Robert. He says, oh, you want them over there, and pointed to another trailer. So when I went over there, Miss Herrera then identified him as being Katrina's father.
Okay. Did she identify him by name as Geronimo Hernandez?
I believe so. I can't recall.
Okay. So you just assumed that since she said Karina's father, that it was Mr. Geronimo Hernandez?
The exact wording of that conversation, I can't remember.
Okay. But to your knowledge, so far in this case, you don't know if you've had actual contact with him.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you. Pass the witness.
All right, Ms. Swallow, any questions from you?
Thank you. Ms. Suarez, what efforts has the department made to serve Mr. Hernandez?
Again, we've searched for him at various addresses. I've gone back to the location that Ms. Herrera identified as, where he was staying. I've looked at Atascosa County Jail, Bexar County Jail. I've looked Wilson County Jail, Vine Link. I've done a search at Haven for Hope, Bureau of Prisons. I've gone online on Facebook to look for him. I've not been able to find him.
Okay, and he's the alleged father to Katrina, correct?
That's correct.
And so are you aware that there's other ways to have him served besides coming personally in contact with him?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, is that something you'll discuss with your legal counsel?
Yes, ma'am.
When's the last time you spoke with Miss Stephanie Herrera in regards to who she believes the father of Katrina is?
I last spoke to her.
And that's okay, Ms. Ruiz. I'll strike that question. Was it recent that you spoke to her about who the father of Katrina may be?
Yes, ma'am. It was within the last 2 weeks.
Okay. And every time you meet with her, do you ask her that question?
No, but I was able to meet her at a residence, and it was a more relaxed setting, and we had a conversation regarding that.
And who does she indicate who she believes the father of Katrina to be?
Mr. Geronimo Hernandez.
Thank you. I pass the witness.
Thank you, Judge. Ms. Juarez, in regards to Maria Herrera, who's the maternal grandmother, is the department able to offer her any kind of training and or services
I know you asked that yesterday at the FGC, and I have not been able to address that with my supervisor at this time.
Okay, is that a possibility?
That's something that I will discuss with my supervisor, and we can absolutely look into.
Okay, I appreciate that. In regards to Katrina and Mary, you're saying that you're looking for additional placement. Would Mary Herrera be considered as an additional placement for these two young children?
I believe that there is a hearing scheduled to address that in the future.
And will you be able to give me a response in regards to the possible training and her services before that hearing so that we can get her, hopefully, if it is a yes, we can get her started on that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I appreciate that. Now, currently, Maria Herrera has possession and access to the children for 30 minutes. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And those are supervised?
Yes, ma'am.
And I hate to be redundant and ask it again, but how are those going?
From the visits that I've supervised and the limited notes that I have from Children Matter, they are going very well. Like I said, initially, the first visit, Katrina was a little bit, taken aback, but she did warm up pretty quickly to grandma.
Okay, and I think in speaking with you yesterday, you indicated that Mary actually gets emotional or clingy after these visits. Is that correct?
Yes, Mary has a hard time with everyone. Yes, saying goodbye.
Yes, and during your supervision, has Mary Herrera been appropriate with the grandchildren?
Yes, from what I saw.
Okay, and has she been able to address whatever needs they have during those 30 minutes?
From what I've seen, yes.
Okay, and have you been able to see if there is a bond between the grandchildren and Miss Mary Herrera?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, a good bond, I hope.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I appreciate you. Now, in regards to the allegations of abuse, from what I'm hearing is that, I guess is what I want to just ask, is that going to be unfounded or what are your thoughts on that?
At this time, the investigation hasn't been concluded. And as far as my understanding from staffing with the investigations is that it's unable to determine, but I'm not sure of exactly what their ruling will be on that one.
Okay, and of course, these allegations are not concerning regarding Mary Herrera, is that correct?
No, I mean, it was no, daddy, no.
Okay, well, I appreciate your honesty. I have another question. Something that's worrisome is about a Facebook posting. Are you referring to a posting that was dated over a year ago and labeled old memories of sometime in January 2022?
No, ma'am.
Okay, do you have a most recent posting?
I think the last one was on December 31st, 2022.
Okay, are there any other ones that are more recent than December of 2022?
I do not recall.
Is there any possibility, I know that, in regards to possession and access, my client's already getting 30 minutes. Is there any possibility that that could be increased to maybe an hour?
Due to us having a goal of family reunification with Miss Stephanie Herrera, I would like to have the majority of the time focused on her and the bond that she has with her kids and establishing more of a bond with mom. And I would really like mom to be more motivated during those visits. And if we're going to extend any visits, I would hope that they would be with mom.
Okay, I appreciate that. I agree actually with that. I was going to ask you in regards to the bruising on the child's arm, is that something that will be investigated or that we need to possibly look at video or something to see what is truly going on with that child?
Once Ms. Herrera did bring it up to me, I discussed it with the placement and they showed me a folder that the teacher gives each day. She writes notes down in. And again, that's something that she's doing in school. The teacher has it well documented. And, I will be bringing that up with the teacher tomorrow to find out why she's so frustrated in class, because she used to be very thrilled to go to school. And now she seems to be frustrated by it.
Thank you. And you also indicated yesterday at the meeting that you were going to check and see if they could move the child to life skills. Is that correct?
Yes, if they have a life skills class for kindergarten, that's what she's supposed to be in according to her ARD. So like I said, some districts don't have that for kindergarten. It doesn't start until first grade, but that will be looked into if she needs to change districts or whatever we need to do to make sure that her needs are being met.
Okay, I thank you very much for all that you're doing, Ms. Juarez, and I'm glad that the children are closer now to parents and to family members. I guess I'll wait to hear from you in regards to any training or services that Ms. Herrera can get involved in. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Did you say that Mr. Michaels is trying to contact the mother during visits, or that the mother is trying to contact Mr. Michaels during visits?
She video chats him during the visits.
And has this court authorized any video visits for Mr. Michaels?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Do you think that those should continue?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Well, is this something that the supervisor of the visits can address when they're occurring?
Well, that was during my supervised visits with her. I don't believe that they're occurring at Children Matter, and they were addressed with her during those visits.
Okay, thank you. With regard to Katrina, are there any other evaluations that you think would be helpful for her at this time?
I've reached out to our our disability specialist and our education specialist in order to help with some of the resources that are out there. Also, Davidson Respite is really great about attending to the kids' needs. So at this time, I think that their needs are being attended to. And if they're not, I am looking into some of the difficulties that Katrina is having at this time.
With regard to the placement of Priscilla and Thomas, are you aware of any obstacles or issues that the foster family is having with regard to daycare?
Yes, they don't meet the requirements for state-funded daycare, I believe, because of something to do with the foster father's, because he's a contractor, so it's hard for him to get the right statements, and he's not exactly self-employed. So there's a little bit of a difficult time in order to meet the requirements for state-funded daycare.
Okay, do you think that it would be beneficial for the family to have daycare so that the foster dad can go to work?
I do.
Would it be beneficial to request the court order that daycare be provided?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. As far as the intervener grandmother, you mentioned that the most recent posts you had seen were in December of 2022. Are you aware of any videos that have been posted in January of 2023?
Honestly, I don't remember exactly when there was a video, but yes, I know that there was a video posted as well.
Okay, is it concerning to the department or to Belong that the grandmother wasn't honest with the court or with Belong regarding her relationship with the grandfather?
Yes, ma'am.
And why is that concerning?
I mean, being honest is 95% of all of this. I mean, it's 100% of all of this, and it's that trust that you build in order to have that trust when you place kids. You know, that they're going to be 100% honest with everything, no matter if it makes them look bad or not, that it can be addressed. It can be, you know, mitigated, but if you're not being honest, it can't be addressed.
And up till now, has Ms. Herrera been honest with the Belong?
As far as her relationship with her husband, no.
Is there anything else that you believe the children need at this time?
Not that I'm aware of at this time.
Thank you. I'll pass the
In your
witness.
report, you said that Ms. Herrera submitted to a hair test and a UA on February 3rd, and the UA was negative, but at the time of writing of your report, the hair test was still pending. Did you get those results?
We actually did not get those results, Your Honor. We had tracked them down because the report that I got back stated that she did not attend her hair follicle test. She told me she did. When I talked to the facility, they also said that she did and provided me with the custody control number. We tracked it to the FedEx shipment and even, you know, the tracking number, but it looks like it might have been lost in transit. So I will be sending her for another hair follicle.
Okay. She is just getting started with therapy at this time?
Yes, ma'am.
Who is she seeing?
She's actually, I just sent the referrals out.
Okay. When is Mr. Martinez scheduled to be released, or when is he expected to be released from incarceration?
Mr. Michaels is set to be released on the, I believe, the 14th.
And do you have a plan or a schedule for visitation for him if he is released at that time?
Yes, it would also be set up with Children Matter.
All right, Ms. Acosta.
Ms. Juarez, are there any protective orders that are currently in place?
I believe that Mr. Michaels has a protective order against Ms. Herrera.
And does Ms. Herrera have an active protective order against Mr. Michaels?
I don't believe so.
Okay, the protective order, the current existing protective order, to your knowledge, does it include the children?
I don't have knowledge of that.
Is there any way that that Belong can obtain that information and give it to me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. I'll pass the witness.
Your Honor,
anyone?
Can I ask you a
Yes.
couple of questions?
Yes.
Okay, Ms. Juarez, just real quickly, I'm looking at a posting that I think that's what you're referring to of December 22nd of 2022. I don't know if you have a copy of that, but was that basically Mary Herrera posting excitement about Carlos Herrera, her son, giving her flowers?
I would have to look back at it. I apologize.
Okay. That's what I'm finding for her posting, and it says mine.
Judge, I was
flower.
gonna object to Ms. Rodriguez presenting things that aren't in evidence. She's reading off of her phone and none of us can see it and none of us have access to it right now.
Well, I'm asking Irene, Ms.
I'm
Nichols, I'm
objecting.
trying to see if Ms. Juarez has it. She indicated it was a posting of December 22nd of the year 2022. I just have it. I'm just.
Your Honor, she's
I
testifying.
know, I'm gonna
Re-
sustain the
objection.
objections, and Ms. Rodriguez, I'm gonna ask you to verify any Facebook posts with Ms. Juarez following the proceeding. I'm not gonna get into that today. I don't find it relevant.
Okay.
Since, we're not,
Okay.
okay,
Yes, Your Honor.
okay,
That's fine.
thank you. All right, let me ask, are there any other witnesses that wish to be called by any party?
I would like to call Ms. Stephanie Herrera. I know we're somewhat short on time. I just need to
Ms.
ask her.
Herrera, can you please start your video? You may proceed, Ms. Swallow.
Thank you. Ms. Herrera, my name is Anna Swallow. I'm an attorney. I was appointed to represent Katrina's unknown father. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Herrera, have you ever been married?
No.
And so you're not currently married?
No, ma'am.
And you weren't married at the time Katrina was born or conceived?
No, ma'am.
And is there a father listed on Katrina's birth certificate?
No, ma'am.
Who do you believe the father of Katrina to be?
Well, I got a DNA test and it's Geronimo Hernandez.
Okay, when did you have that DNA test?
It was, I'm not sure. I sent it to right a little while ago to my lawyer on email.
Okay, did you give a copy to Ms. Juarez?
No, I can't though. It's
Okay.
a screenshot of the test that I had got. The child support office got it. Yes.
Okay, so there was a pending case with the Attorney General's office?
Yes.
Out of what county?
Atascosa.
Okay. And do you have any paperwork or documentation of that case?
No.
Okay. And was Mr. Hernandez ordered to pay child support?
Yes.
How much was he ordered to pay?
I'm not too sure.
Okay. Do you remember when this occurred?
Maybe 20, hold on. 16, probably around 2018 or 2019.
Okay. And do you believe that he is the father to Katrina only out of all of your children?
Yeah, he's just her father.
Okay. And when's the last time you spoke to Mr. Hernandez?
Yesterday, I believe.
Okay. Do you know where he lives?
And what I know, he's homeless.
Excuse me?
He's homeless. That's what he says.
Where did you speak to him?
On Facebook.
Okay. Do you have his a phone number for any of his relatives or associates?
No, I don't have no number.
Okay. Any information you have regarding Mr. Hernandez, could you give that to your attorney, please?
Yes.
Thank you. I pass the witness.
Yes, Judge. At this time, the children are doing well in their placements. Both placements are appropriate. I do have concerns about Katrina and her behaviors. I do know that when she was in the Austin area, there were some issues with the special education she was receiving, just and whether or not she was getting the right services. And so it's concerning that now she's having similar issues, if not worse. And so I'd like there to be a follow-up. I know that Ms. Juarez said that she was going to follow up with the school. But I would like her to copy me on anything that's followed up, just so that I'm aware of what's happening there and we're making sure that she's getting all of her needs met. I can understand Mary. She's little and it's difficult. She's there with her sister, but she doesn't have her other siblings. She's not with family. And she's not in a home setting. I don't think that there's anything wrong. Respite home there, it's a great facility, but I would like her and Katrina to be in a more home-like environment if it's possible. As with regard to Priscilla and Thomas, they're doing really well. All of their needs are being met. I would like the daycare to be ordered if possible. I know that the foster dad, I've spoken to him and he's like, I don't mind taking care of them every day. I will. But he would also like to be able to work, which he has been doing. It's just he's working as a contractor, so it's difficult to get everything that's needed. I think he was like 2 or 4 hours shy of meeting the threshold. He said the work is there. It's just if I don't go to the work, then I don't get the proof that I'm working. And so it's a little bit of it's a catch-22, right? He either works and gets the documentation, or he doesn't work and he doesn't have it. And so if it's able to be ordered, I think that would benefit the family and allow the kids to have socialization in a daycare with other kids their own age. I do have concerns that the mom has been allowing dad or Mr. Michaels to have video access to the children during the visits. I think that that's troublesome. One, because of the relationship between the two of them, first of all. And second, it hasn't been authorized by this court, and until he, engages in services and does what he's supposed to do in order to have those visits approved, I don't think it's appropriate for those to be occurring. With regard to the intervening grandmother, I do have concerns that she wasn't truthful with the court. It's concerning to me, especially if she's requesting that we place these children with her. But I'll leave it at that right now. It's concerning to me. I wouldn't feel like she was going to be upfront with anything if she's not willing to be honest about the relationship she has with her husband. I think that's it. But I would advocate that the placements continue, that daycare be authorized for the placement of Priscilla and Thomas, and that the department look into a more, stable placement for Katrina and Mary.
All right, thank you, Ms. Acosta. And Mr. Otto, would you like to add to the report you submitted to the court as well in light of what we've discussed today?
Yes, thank you very much. I will just say that I have had an opportunity to meet all the kids, and I share the same concerns as Ms. Juarez for Katrina, especially when I originally visited with the teacher and asked if she felt like she was able to do the work. She said she was. And then when I met with Katrina, and then the reports that I got from Beth, I agree. I'm glad that Beth is looking into that for her. And then I would just share the same opinion about the home for them, especially respite center. It looks like they do a great job over there. But especially for like Mary, I don't know that it's the right environment for her. And then Katrina as well, if they could have a family environment. So all those are already being addressed, but I just want to say that I also agree with that.
Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Otto. Does anyone else need to address the board at this
I
time?
would just request that if Ms. Pearsall or her client has any information regarding that AG case, that be circulated to the parties so that we can consolidate and possibly I can be dismissed.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for addressing that today, because I think that was very important. So, all right, at this time, the court, based on the testimony that has been presented today, is going to find that no parent is in compliance with their plan of service at this time. And I would like to address Ms. Herrera. If you could turn your video back on, I just would like to say a few things in regards to what you could do to change that for a future hearing, because it's my hope that you can. I think right now the drug treatment is really important, and I'm glad that you have started that. And I'm glad you're following up with the mental health treatment as well. That's very important. But the counseling and the domestic violence program for me are going to be some of the most important services that you can engage in, because I'm very concerned about this ongoing relationship with Mr. Michaels, and what that means for you, knowing right now that your parental rights are restricted and that the violence between the two of you is a big part of why they're not in your care right now, that you would continue that relationship. And I want you to address why that might be your choice and how you're going about your life in counseling. And I hope that in part of your involvement in counseling and